Hi guys, so in this video I wanted to talk about Rio Nanay Angelfish, also known as Peruvian Altum or Peru Altum. So there's lots of confusion as to what is a Rio Nanay Angelfish and why is it called Peruvian Altum. What's the difference between Rio Nanay Angelfish and Peru Altum? What's the difference between Rio Nanay Angelfish and all other forms of angelfish? So in this video I'm going to address most of these issues. So first of all, we have to keep in mind that Rio Nanay Angelfish is not a true Altum. It has nothing to do with Pterophyllum Altum, the real Altum angelfish. It's not genetically related to Altums. It's a completely different species. I will talk a bit later as to why it is often called as Peru Altum, but let's start with distribution of Rio Nanay angels. Rio Nanay angels originate, as you can guess from their name, from Rio Nanay, which is a river in northern Peru, and I'm going to zoom in. It's a tributary of Amazon River, and here you can see this is Amazon River, and Rio Nanay is this river system here. It's very close to a big city, Iquitos, and this is the whole system of Rio Nanay tributaries and small lakes connected to it, and this is where Rio Nanay angels are originally from. This whole Rio Nanay river system is a black water system, so the color of the water is black. On both sides of the river there are tropical rainforest, so there's quite a lot of driftwood on the bottom of the river, lots of leaf litter, very few live plants, but lots of overhanging terrestrial riparian plants. So the water is dark, lots of driftwood, lots of leaf litter, really low pH and relatively high temperature. On the screen you will see water parameters from 3 different locations across Rio Nanay river system. These parameters were taken at different seasons, and you can see that temperature is relatively high, above 27 degrees Celsius, and it goes all the way to 30 degrees Celsius. pH is really low and conductivity is also very low. So these are the water parameters that Rio Nanay angels are used to in their original habitat in Rio Nanay. The other thing to keep in mind about the original habitat of Rio Nanay angels is that Rio Nanay system is relatively large river with lots of small tributaries and lakes connected to this river. It's over 300 kilometers long, so it's a relatively large habitat. We can expect different variations of fish to occur across the system. There are not only original Rio Nanay angels with this distinctive black spot on their backs, but there are also striped angels very similar to regular wild form of Altum Scalare, which doesn't have a distinctive black spot on their backs. Rio Nanay river system is also famous for a number of other fish that we have in the hobby, for example green discus, lots of various caracins such as cardinal tetras and different other species of tetras. So now let's look at the appearance of Rio Nanay angels. What distinguishes them from all other wild types of Pterophyllum scalare, from other angelfish? First of all is this upright nasal notch that kind of goes up. The second thing that you have to look up is a straight, almost vertical dorsal fin and anal fin. Unlike other forms of angelfish, which sometimes have this triangular shaped dorsal and anal fins, Rio Nanay angels, they have really upright, straight dorsal fin and anal fin. They also have this very distinctive black spot on their backs. It's usually located between the second and third stripes. It's always very distinctive, so you will notice it. Only the real Rio Nanay angels will have this black spot on their backs. When Rio Nanay angels about a couple of months old, they should already have this black spot on their backs, which will distinguish them from other forms of angelfish and also from altums, because altums, no matter how young they are, they should not have this black spot on their backs. The other important feature of Rio Nanay angels are a lot of different colored and different sized small spots on their body. Usually these spots are yellowish, sometimes they're slightly orange, they might be gray, they might be olive. It depends on the catch location of Rio Nanay angel. So that's why sometimes some wild caught Rio Nanay angels are called red spot Rio Nanay angels, because they have lots of these orange or yellowish spots on their body. It also depends on individual fish. Some fish will have more spots, others will have less spots, but this is something that a true Rio Nanay angel should definitely have. If your Rio Nanay angel does not have this yellowish, grayish, olivish or orangish spots, it might be from the same river system, but it may not necessarily be a true Rio Nanay angelfish. So there are these four things that you have to look for when you are buying a Rio Nanay angel. First is slightly upright nasal notch. Second, distinctive black spot between the second and third stripes. Third, this really vertical dorsal and anal fins. And fourth, lots of small spots, small colored spots throughout their body. So a real Rio Nanay angel is an absolutely beautiful fish. It's colorful, it looks slightly similar to Altum angelfish, but anyone who has kept Altums will easily distinguish between these two species, because clearly they are very different in lots of various aspects. In terms of their size, Rio Nanay angels are usually much smaller than Altums, and they're also smaller than, for example, Manakapuru redback angels. In many cases, you would only be able to buy wild caught Rio Nanay angels, and in some cases they've already relatively large, so they've reached their adult size. They may not be too large, but about like 15 centimeters high, and that will be their final size. In some cases, when you buy younger fish, they would be able to grow a bit larger, but in many cases wild caught fish will just stay the way they are, so they are not going to grow much larger than that. If you are new to angelfish keeping world, and you've probably already seen this label Peruvian Altum at your local aquatic store, or you have seen it online if you're shopping for fish online, and sadly, most of the fish that are sold as Peruvian Altums have nothing to do with real Rio Nanay angels. These are regular striped farmed angelfish, Pterophyllum scalare. Yes, they are the same species with Rio Nanay angels, but they are not the same color form. They are not wild type of angelfish. They are just regular striped angelfish. Here you can see a photo which I have taken from a website of a very reputable online tropical fish retailer here in the UK. So these fish are sold as Peruvian Altums, and they cost about 3 times more than regular striped angels. But as you can see from this picture, and if you compare them to the previous pictures and the footage of Rio Nanay angels that I've shown you so far, you will clearly see differences. These fish, they don't have upright nasal notch, they don't have vertical dorsal and anal fins, they don't have a distinctive spot on their backs, and they don't have lots of colored spots on their bodies. They are just regular striped angelfish and nothing more. So they're not different from regular striped farmed domestic angelfish, although they are sold as Peruvian Altums. But in many cases you should not blame your local retailer, because most of them, they're just purchase their fish from Asian farms, from Asian breeders, and this is a label that breeders, particularly in Asia, attach to any wild looking angelfish, striped angelfish, Peruvian Altum, because that sells better. It has word Altum in it, which means that it's probably something fancy, which it is not, sadly. So if you are seeing a fish labeled as Peruvian Altum at your local aquatic store, you have to be really careful before you decide to buy it, and you have to consider whether you want a regular striped angelfish, in which case you just go and buy that fish, or you want a Rio Nanay angelfish, which is actually very rarely labeled as Peruvian Altum. Real Rio Nanay angels are usually labeled as Rio Nanay angels rather than as Peruvian Altums, because Peruvian Altum was a label that was pretty much created at Asian fish farms, and it's usually used to sell fish for what it is not. So it's used to sell regular striped angelfish, which is sold as an Altum, which is sold as a Peruvian Altum, but in reality it is not. So if you are after a real Rio Nanay angelfish, you have to look for fish labeled as Rio Nanay angelfish, because those retailers, those wholesalers who are familiar with this fish and who import this fish from Peru, from South America, they will never label it as Peruvian Altum. They will label it as Rio Nanay angelfish, because they know what it's worth and they know what it actually costs. Usually real wild caught Rio Nanay angels, they are way more expensive than the fish that's sold as a Peruvian Altum. So on average it should be in the area of 30 British pounds here in the UK. It costs very similar in Europe, about 30 to 40 euro each, and it is rarely available as youngsters, as juveniles. It's usually sold as sub-adults. Sometimes you can find F1, F2 and so on Rio Nanay angels. That does happen, but it doesn't happen very often, because there are very few regular breeders of Rio Nanay angelfish, and that's why most of the fish that are out there are wild caught fish. Alright, so what about keeping Rio Nanay angels in aquarium, in your fish tank? For wild caught specimens, you certainly need to go for higher temperatures. As you can see, the habitats, biotopes where Rio Nanay angels live in nature, they have relatively high temperatures. So you should go for temperature above 28 degrees Celsius. This is something that will make the angels more comfortable. If you have wild caught specimens, it would be good if you have softer water around pH 6, but if you don't, they will generally adapt quite easily to a higher pH. If you keep them in pH above 8, they are not going to breed, most likely. They might breed, but you will have challenges hatching the eggs, so you will need to use RO water in that case, but they would normally cope well with higher pH when we talk about wild caught fish. If you have captive bred Rio Nanay angels, they are quite adaptable in terms of temperature, in terms of pH and conductivity, so you should have no problems with them. Another thing about wild fish is that they are used to quite clean and pristine water, so zero ammonia, zero nitrite and zero nitrate. Well, lower levels of nitrate are preferable. So it means frequent water changes. They would certainly also appreciate a biotop type of aquarium with black water, lots of driftwood, leaf litter, almost no plants. But again, they're quite adaptable. I have only kept wild caught Rio Nanay angels, so my experience is mostly with wild caught fish. I never had captive bred Rio Nanay angels. In terms of their behavior, those wild caught Rio Nanay angels which I had, they used to be quite aggressive towards each other, towards other types of angelfish, and even towards other fish. They have really small mouths, so they wouldn't be able to swallow even a smaller fish like a neon tetra or cardinal tetra, but they will definitely try to catch and grab that fish and bite it. So in my experience, wild-caught Rio Nanay angels are quite opportunistic and quite aggressive towards other fish. So for example, I've had much smaller Rio Nanays with adult Altums, and these smaller Rio Nanays, but they will harass larger Altums, so you have to keep that in mind. Again, you might have different experience with your Rio Nanay angels, but this was my experience. In terms of feeding, wild-caught fish might be finicky with food. For example, my Rio Nanay angels, they've never gotten to eat dry foods properly. They will kind of grab it and spit it out, so they preferred frozen foods, frozen brine shrimp and frozen bloodworms. But again, it's a matter of time. It would take them a while to get used to dry foods. In terms of other aspects, these angels are very similar to other wild-caught forms of angelfish. They don't grow too large, but they still need a relatively large tank, at least 250 liter for a group or for a pair, again because in my experience they used to be more aggressive than other types of angelfish, so probably they would need a separate tank for a pair or for a small group. Okay, so I hope this video was useful, and I would certainly recommend you keeping true Rio Nanay angels, because they are marvelous, beautiful fish with absolutely gorgeous colors, very unique behavior. They are more readily available than Altum angelfish, and they're usually cheaper than real Altums, and they are quite available from specialist retailers, usually during different seasons. So they're certainly something that you can find more easily than real Altums. They also have this Altumish look, so for anyone who is not an expert in angelfish, they would look like real Altums, and having a group of Rio Nanay angels in your tank, in your biotop tank, in your planted tank will just make it absolutely amazing. So I would definitely recommend you having or keeping this fish. Leave your comments in the comment section. I would be delighted to hear about your experiences with Rio Nanay angels or with Peruvian Altums, and I will see you soon in further videos.